The modern age of appeasement is finally coming to an end. The United States killed Soleimani, the commander of the Iranian Quds Force and top terrorist in the Middle East, and everything is on fire today. The liberals have gone nuts. Donald Trump has even gotten them to defend the evil Soleimani and war criminal and the country of Iran that's been at war with the United States of America for 40 years since they took 52 American hostages and held them for 444 days. So strap in. This is the Rob Maness Show. The modern age of appeasement is finally ending. I said it was a peace for our time Neville Chamberlain moment when I wrote about its beginning with the ill-fated Iran nuclear deal, as it's known in the swamp. I've commanded Americans in combat and strongly opposed war, but the appeasement is the most risky and dangerous path to take that only leads to more death and destruction. It prolongs existing conflict and sets the conditions to ignite the passionate fires that lead to all-out war. The United States is at war with terrorists, but the country of Iran is at war with us and has been since 1979. I've seen much hand-wringing and pontificating in the days since the U.S. successfully targeted and destroyed the top terrorist in the world, Iran's terror commander, Qasem Soleimani, just outside of the Baghdad International Airport. However, General David Petraeus, former commander of Allied forces in Iraq, Afghanistan, and head of the Central Intelligence Agency, said this about the attack, and I quote, "It's impossible to overstate the importance of this particular action. It is more significant than the killing of Osama bin Laden or even the death of Islamic State group leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi," unquote. Petraeus told Foreign Policy in a recent interview. I agree with him and believe the commander-in-chief, President Trump, made a sound decision to target this evil man in an operational sense, legally and ethically under the U.S. Constitution and the international laws of armed conflict. But not so fast, folks. The leftists, the mainstream media punditry, so-called reporters, every single Democrat Party presidential candidate, and congressional leaders are defending Iran and Soleimani as a revered military leader and a government employee. They're also saying the U.S. operation was an illegal assassination instead of a legitimate wartime act on a critical enemy target, that it will have vast escalatory consequences, that Congress should have been informed before the attack, or even that the president wasn't authorized to conduct the operation. And guess what? That the action contradicts current administration's policy or intent to get us out of the forever wars. And last but certainly not least, even that the president took the action to start a war with Iran in order to distract from his impeachment by the House of Representatives. I believe the American people will see through these complaints by hyper-partisan actors for what they are. Former Special Forces Weapons NCO and Security Studies Group President Jim Hanson is back with us to help us break down each of these complaints, demonstrating why I'm right. Jim Hanson from the Security Studies Group, welcome back to the Rob Maness Show.
Good to be with you, brother.
We appreciate you coming on so we can tear this disinformation apart about the successful U.S. strike that killed Soleimani, who I think is the most evil terror commander on the face of the earth these days. And it was a good shot, successful operation, I believe legal from a U.S. perspective, from an international law of armed conflict perspective. I believe ethical from the perspective that he was in territory that's a combat zone for the United States, and he was directly commanding and controlling forces that had resulted in a killed American, along with a whole bunch of other operations over the past couple of months and those kind of things. So, but the media, man, and the lefties and all those guys, they're like, oh no, it was an illegal assassination. Let's take that one. What are your thoughts on that? Help my viewing audience break that down and make sense of what I believe is a silly tag on this operation.
Well, they're going by the fact that Soleimani was a general, was a government official for Iran. And that's true. He also happened to be a designated terrorist on the U.S. designation list, and the organization he ran, the Quds Force, was also a designated organization, and he was actively engaged in attacking the United States. So regardless of whether he happened to be any part of another government in any way, shape, or form, his own actions over the years and directly leading to this attack made him a perfectly valid target. And let's just get this out right away. I'm glad he's dead.
Oh, I am too. I mean, I was a young kid, E1 in 1979, and he's been an enemy out to get people like me and you for 40-something years, in my opinion, in that regard, and has kept Iran at war with the United States, man. So, what do you think about the potential escalatory effects of this? I see this as a de-escalation action based on what I know about the Middle East and what I know about the Islam and the Shia and Sunni issue and those kind of things. I think it's going to de-escalate Iran back down into their box where where they need to be in the long term. Obviously, they're ratcheting up their rhetoric. They're probably going to do something, or they're going to try. And the president's posturing our forces and relocating some forces to ensure he can back up what America needs to do. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, I love Trump's rhetoric. I mean, that's one of the things we love about the guy is for once, America's acting like we're the biggest dog on the planet, because we are. I mean, every other country is a puppy in comparison when you talk about the force capabilities and the expeditionary ability of their military. I think the most crazy thing people have been saying is that this is going to lead to World War III. A world war requires two sides. All right, you got to have one side with a group of people, and we've got plenty of allies who would back us. Who's joining with Iran? Who is literally going to throw in with the Islamic Republic of Iran against the United States? Not Russia, not China, not Qatar, not Turkey, not anybody. All right, they're on their own. So it won't be a world war. And as far as is it going to escalate, I think you're absolutely right. They will feel the need to do something. But what just happened is the United States, in a region that is full of tribal and honor cultures, just showed them up and beat them down and changed the calculus. Soleimani was a hero in Iran. He was a big, tough guy who scared people around there. Now they have to look at that, and all the people in the region say, well, if he was the toughest guy Iran had and they wiped him out and turned him into a quivering mass of jelly, maybe they're not so tough after all.
Yeah, looking at the whole issue in context, it's Iran that's been escalating, albeit on a gradual basis, but for several years now, they're the ones that have been escalating, and the United States has shown great restraint. Even President Trump, when they shot down the Global Hawk, which is an expensive piece of gear in international airspace. But the interesting thing is that people actually think we're going to go to World War III when this country spends about $13 billion a year compared to our $750 billion a year on defense, number one. And I think what's really happened is that it's a good operation to put deterrence back into effect and start deterring these guys more effectively, because appeasing them as the Iran nuke deal started out in this modern age of appeasement is really, it's just a pathway to war, to be honest with you.
Well, and Obama's policy of cringing capitulation, as I like to call it, got us to where we are today. Because it's the strong horse. People in that region understand the concept of the strong horse, and they back it. Well, if we don't respond to continually escalating provocations by Iran, then we look weak, they look strong, and we invite exactly what happened. We invite someone to attack our embassy. So Trump looked at that and said, no, That is not how we're going to operate. And consequently, like you said, he's changed the calculus. He's made it so that they have to think, okay, do I really, really want, my Navy to disappear in an afternoon in a rain of Tomahawk missiles? Do I want a bunch of electricity generating stations to disappear? And all of a sudden I got to explain why the people don't have electricity. They don't need that and they can't deal with it. So they're going to have to watch it a little bit. And you take into effect also the fact that Soleimani ran all their proxies. He was the guy, and a lot of it was kind of cult of personality. It was based on him as a quasi-heroic bad guy in the region. So that's all gone, and it's in chaos, and they're losing ground in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. No matter what the media is telling you, they're in deep trouble in all those places, and that's good for us.
And this deterrent effect that's being reestablished, Ben, I totally agree with you that they're losing ground everywhere and acting on this momentum that we have and this chaos and disarray that's caused by this hit on Soleimani. The president's deployed more B-52 bombers into the area. We're redeploying ground forces from the 82nd Airborne, the Ranger Regiment, in the thousands now back to the area to show that, hey, we are putting our money where our mouth is and we can do it. And you better beware of what your action is, right?
Yeah, and it's funny, I think the funniest, well, there's so many comical things in the media these days as they lionize Soleimani as, such a tremendous human being, and he was flying around the region bringing, food to hungry children. No, he was bringing weapons to terrorists. But they compared the Quds Force to Delta, the Ranger Regiment, and the Navy SEALs all combined into one. Like, come on. The Quds Force is a clown show of terrorists who at their best can kill innocent people, but in a force-on-force against anybody with a real military would simply die in droves. So I think they know that. And so now that our guys have postured forward in an aggressive way, and they know there's a commander-in-chief who will pull the trigger, who will greenlight an op, which we didn't have for a very long time, it's a completely different calculus, and they can't go ahead and do the usual things they've been doing. And I think in the end, this is going to destabilize their control over all of their proxies in the puppet countries I mentioned, and also drive a wedge between them and their own people back home who've been protesting pretty hard about these wasteful, adventurous, supremacist activities all through the region. They want eggs and butter. They don't want guns for terrorists in Syria.
Yeah, anybody who's been watching the social media coming out of Iran the last 6 months, the demonstrations and riots have been about gasoline prices and food prices and availability and those kind of things. I don't for a minute believe more than 1% of the Iranian people thought Soleimani was some kind of hero. And it's good to hear, somebody say that's an expert say, look, aggressively posturing your forces is not escalating, it's de-escalatory because it establishes that deterrence and it shows them we mean business. But let's turn to the domestic political side here for a second. And here's the other crazy media thing that folks are saying is, well, Congress is required to be informed by the Constitution on any operation like this. Now, I've been around a while. You've been around a while. I don't think Obama told anybody about the Osama bin Laden hit until after it was done or on the way. And this is a very sensitive issue with people inside of our digital systems and our communication systems. We know they're there. Why on earth would you tell somebody like Adam Schiff, the leaker of the century, about an operation until it was over and successful? What are your thoughts on that?
The nice thing about the U.S. Constitution, it's not real long. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's a very simple document. You could read it in an hour or so. And I checked. I went back and looked. It doesn't say a damn thing about telling Nancy Pelosi we're going to blow somebody up who's planning to kill Americans. It's not in there. Not in there anywhere. What it does say is that the president is the commander-in-chief and responsible for the safety of the United States. Consequently, his judgment is the only one that matters. If he wants to tell Congress, and if we had a trustworthy Democrat Party in Congress, he could. And previously, there have been many times where there's strikes like this or something major going to happen where there was, an immediate notification given prior to this happening. But I think you're absolutely right. Not a chance in the world I'm telling Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Adam Schiff, and the rest of that clown show, who right now are trying to throw him out of office and give them a second chance to disrupt this. Now, they got told afterwards when everybody else did. And right now, if they want to go ahead and have a debate about whether we should go to war with Iran, that's in the Constitution. They can do that. And they can say, if you want to go to war with Iran, we have to authorize it. And that's fair. But we're not at war. We're not going to war. Now, they've been at war with us. We're simply retaliating for and deterring future bad actions by them against U.S. forces to keep Americans safe around the world. That's the president's job.
Exactly right. And now, with this de-escalatory operation and deterrence operations, we have a good chance of them not doing anything and getting back maybe to the table. And that gets me to my next, and I'm sorry, I keep laughing, man, but they all give me a chuckle. So it was constitutionally authorized. They didn't need to tell Congress. But my next one is, oh, no. We've got to call this guy out because he's being hypocritical and contradicting his overarching strategic policy of his intent and promise on his campaign to get us out of the forever wars. And I know you and I have talked about that before, and you've presented plans to him. I don't think it's demonstrated any intent to not fulfill that promise. I think it's actually trying to set the conditions so we can do that.
Bingo. I mean, killing Soleimani makes it less likely we will be in any of the countries we're currently in the Middle East any longer than we have to be. Because Iran was the main agitating factor after ISIS. So between the two things we have an authorization to use military force against ISIS, Al-Qaeda, those guys. We also have had the complicating factor of Iran supplying and operating against us in all those areas and helping the bad guys. Even as the Iranian-backed militias in Iraq were helping in the fight against ISIS, they were also committing war crimes and operating against the United States in a lot of ways. So they were nowhere near an ally. They were not even really a frenemy. They were enemies we were operating alongside of because they happened to be killing people we hated more than them at that point in time. But now we can look at the strategic calculus for everyone. And if Iran is pushed back on their heels, the United States then doesn't have to be as forward leaning to stop them from pushing forward, from pushing to be regional hegemons, and even worse, from pushing to be a nuclear power. All of those things are going to come into play. And I think the Iranian people are going to tell the mullahs, we want gasoline, we want eggs, we want butter, and we're sick of you causing all these troubles for us by spending our money. You know, they kept asking him, where's all the money Obama sent you on that plane? How come we didn't get any of that? How come all of that went to the proxy armies in Yemen, Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon? Why didn't you give some of that to us? And I think now we can start working the other organs of U.S. power, diplomacy, economic, and others, to make sure that Iran is no longer the major disruptive factor they've been in the region.
Let's say hypothetically that let's say Iran does a response and they end up killing an American or coming close to killing Americans, and the president pulls the trigger on the 52 targets, which I thought was numerically a wonderful way to put that out there and let them know, hey, we're going after 52 targets, just to remind you that you took 52 Americans hostage and held them for 444 days when you started this war. So what do you think that does when the president responds aggressively like that? And I believe the targets will be primarily nuclear targets and any type of refining capability and those kind of things, and to continue to economically crush the government until the people are able to uprise. What do you think?
Yeah. I think those are all valid and viable and proper. And as you do targeting analysis, they should be on the list. I have a particular for taking out the Iranian Navy. Here's why. The Iranian Navy does nothing for the people of Iran, right? It has absolutely no value to them. Its sole purpose is to harass shipping through the Gulf. It's there to cause trouble for us and for the other countries that have to transit, their ships through there, and for the free flow of energy in and out of the region. So there is no, if we take out a refinery, then that actually causes some heartache for the Iranian people. If we take out an electrical generating station, that too. No, not that those aren't valid. But if we take out their Navy, the people don't get hurt. We kill some IRGC guys. Good. They're bad guys. They're terrorists.
Yep.
We take out their ability to harass shipping, and we make a major point about the fact that the things you do, Iran, that are just by nature malign are what we're going to target. I think that is such a much better way to approach it. And we could do it in a day. You know, we could, in a good day, day and a half, we could destroy the Iranian Navy to the extent that they have one. And I hope we do. I hope that's the next step.
Yeah, I would definitely like to see that on the target list myself, because that's their only reach, really,
Yeah.
Of any significance. And then the nuclear targets, I think, are a must hit if he's going to go to the trouble to do that strike and really put them back in the deterred box. We'll have to do that. But the last one that I want to let you have an opportunity at, I've thought a lot about this question in my mind, and most of the words I think of I can't even say on internet television. But of course, Nancy Pelosi and Schumer and all the political idiots on the left and the Democrat Party are saying, the president did this. He took this action to distract from the impeachment, which is a joke. and a hoax, to quote the President of the United States as recently as a few moments ago.
Right.
I've seen no evidence of that. Now, you can't keep everything secret. Obviously, we know that from seeing people coming out of the national security staff meetings and telephone call transcription sessions and spilling the beans. So what do you think? I mean, is there seriously any possibility that this occurred, and for that reason? I don't think so. But what are your thoughts on that? You're closer to those guys in D.C. than I am.
Yeah, unfortunately. I think it's absurd to think that somehow President Trump convinced Kataib Hezbollah to hit bases in Iraq and kill an American, so he'd have cause to retaliate by hitting bases in Iraq and Syria, to cause Soleimani to tell Hezbollah to attack our embassy and then give him a reason to kill that. I mean, I wish we were that tricky, you know, I mean, in some way, not because Trump needed to, distract from impeachment, just because that would be some seriously good tradecraft, aside from getting an American killed, and that would be horrible. But my point is, that didn't happen. None of that happened. Iran was the aggressor, as you pointed out, since 79. For 40 plus years, they have been the aggressor. They have been escalating and attacking. The left's just unhappy now, as Kurt Schlichter said, because we're shooting back. They didn't want us to do that. So the idea that, and why would Trump want to distract from the clown show? The Democrats were raising his approval rating with their impeachment clown show. So, I mean, from his perspective, bring more impeachment on. If he didn't have to deal with Iran and they were acting decent, he'd be plenty happy to scrap with them over the impeachment and win and be acquitted and be reelected, which they just helped with. So again, it's another lame, pathetic, and ultimately self-defeating story from the Democrats.
Yeah, I got a feeling that if they don't change their ways, they're going to take quite a shellacking here in 2020, man. Well, I appreciate you being on. I believe that we will be disengaged on the ground in this area fairly soon. I believe that the Iranians won't do anything that requires a counterattack. But if they do, I'm convinced and have confirmed that we are more than ready to fulfill our responsibilities. And I appreciate having you on. How can folks find you, Jim?
I am on Twitter, Jim Hanson DC, and that's where the fun is. I mean, come on. I love Twitter. It's a lovely place where people politely discuss the issues of the day and no one's ever mean to each other. So
exactly right. That's why I'm on Twitter, and precisely because everybody's so nice.
There you go.
Thanks a lot.
It's
we
the
appreciate
sweetness
you,
and
brother.
light. All right, good to be with you.
God bless. Well, we greatly appreciate Security Studies Group President Jim Hanson joining us today to walk through and analyze all of the issues with the literally ludicrous questioning of the United States of America in its successful military operation eliminating the evil Soleimani from the world's battlefield. Until next week, I'll see you on the Rob Maness Show.